Howdy friends, welcome to another episode of the Rifle Chair channel. This is mail call number 2. So I try to do these videos, well, this will be the second video, so it's not like I try to do them on a regular basis, but at least once quarterly I figure. Maybe every 2 or 3 months I'll come out with a mail call video. Some of the responses from the last one were actually quite positive, so keep doing it. So mail call is essentially my preferred way of trying to address comments or questions that are posted on my videos, because I'm finding it difficult to keep up with the typing. So I'll just make a video to respond to them. It's a way of engaging with you guys. Should we say kind of maybe a higher level? Because I really do appreciate the two-way dialogue, even the good comments and the bad comments. Right. So some of the comments that have been put on my videos have been really vitriolic and awful, to be honest with you, and people have asked me, why don't you just delete them? And because the reason why I don't delete them is because I want people to see the kind of people that are making those comments, right? I support free speech, even when evil people are speaking. I want people to see the evil people speaking. All right, that's called transparency. And so let's get into it. First one here is a comment from Frank. He says, I bought a Lee Enfield and the magazine is very hard to get out. The magazine lever release is very hard to push. Also, what can I do to resolve this problem? So there could be any number of reasons why your magazine is not coming out of your rifle very effectively. One of them might be that you actually have the wrong magazine in that rifle. So when you have your Lee Enfield, okay, so this is a number 1 Mark III. This is an Indian, which I'm currently restoring. And actually, while we're talking about this, I'll give it a little bit of oil. So the Lee Enfield has 2 kinds of oil. Sorry, magazines. The SMLE magazine has a spline on it, goes all the way down like that. Okay, see this spline goes all the way down to the bottom. Well, the number 4 magazine does not have that. Number 4 magazine is right here. SMLE magazine number 1 Mark III is right here. So if you have a number 4 magazine and you're trying to put a number 1 magazine into it, you're going to have difficulties. The other thing that could be happening is you may need to do a total rifle teardown, which you should do anyway, and have a look at the sear, where the sear and the cocking piece meet. Make sure that those haven't been screwed around, that you don't have cosmoline and dirt among ratcheting up the entire trigger assembly. Clean it out, make sure it's working properly, then re-engage and see if it's working for you again. However, from what I'm hearing from you here, maybe possibly you've got the wrong magazine in the wrong rifle, because that will happen. They will fit if you force it hard enough, and people run into problems, right? It's feeding problems, it's trying to insert the magazine, all kinds of different problems. So this jungle fighter here, this Indian SMLE, it has been very, very thirsty, and it has been constantly requiring more oil. This wood is soaking it right up. And it's got a lot. I mean, it's not just this rifle I'm doing it for. I'm doing it for a bunch of rifles, including this one over here. This one is for the ZKK 600. It's a different kind of walnut, and it is not soaking up as much as the Indian, the Meranti wood on this Indian Enfield, but it is soaking it up nonetheless. The reason why I want this stock to have a decent coat of oil on it is because of its trigger assembly mechanism. It's not your standard Mauser 98 style of the trigger mechanism. The trigger guard and everything is very much similar to a Lee Enfield in many respects. So I hang it up here to dry because this is where most of the warm air is. I'm in the furnace room right now where the wood stove is. All right, you want your linseed oil to cure efficiently. If you put it in a cold, damp room, your linseed oil is going to stay wet. Incidentally, make sure you read the directions on the bottle of these linseed oil containers because the rags on here, see, I'll read you what this says. Danger of combustion. Materials such as rags used with this product may begin to burn by themselves. After use, put rags in water or leave flat to dry, then discard. Do not store oil-soaked rags, brushes, or open containers of linseed oil in an enclosed area. Do not eat or feed to animals. Why would anybody do that? So this stuff will self-combust. So just follow the directions on your container and be on the safe side. Anyway, regarding the ZKK600, what I was talking about is safety it anyway. Is that the ZKK600, the trigger assembly is part of the trigger guard, right? These two pieces right here, they're not your conventional trigger system, okay? So that stock, I want to make sure it doesn't have, it's not going to be sitting there swelling water and changing the trigger pressure, where the wood swells and moves up and down. So I'm properly oiling that stock, and what I'm doing is I'm penetrating that wood with raw linseed oil. I want it to penetrate as deeply into that wood as possible. When I've got a good saturation level, I'll coat it with a boiled linseed oil product that has chemical dryers in it, just to act as kind of a hard outer surface to conceal the wood, to encase the wood. Okay, I just got off subject there. Anyway, so I'm in the shop today. We're doing some hand loading with a 303 Brit, and getting ready for a future video that'll involve. I can't really talk too much about hand loading because this is YouTube, and they'll just delete my video. So I'm not going to be talking to you about how to make ammunition, but I'll be telling you about some performance thresholds, I guess you'd call it, with the 303 British and different projectiles. Okay, so here's Tim D9804. This is about a day ago. Here we go. I'll read you one of the good and bad, I guess you'd say. Bullshit. I have two featherweights that were both born in South Carolina at the Hurstville plant. So it's an FN, but it's an American-made FN. This is before they exported everything over to Portugal, so that Browning could assemble these rifles in Portugal. One is a 7mm 08, and the other is a SHOT Show edition 257 Roberts. Oh, I love the 257 Roberts. Good choice. Both wear Leupold VX2 2-7 by 33. Glass, and both shoot 1 inch to 1.5 inch 5-shot groups at 100 yards. Okay, I suppose that's possible with a pencil barrel. With an occasional group under an inch. I'm certain that with a bit more magnification and a finer reticle, they'd be both consistent 1-inch shooters. They are both shot on bags under front and rear without grasping the forend. Okay, so I've tried that as well. I didn't have good results with my 243. Don't go making generalizations about all featherweights because of your experience with one rifle. Have you checked the barrel float? Yes, I have. It is fully free-floated. Maybe there's a pressure point somewhere along the barrel. No, there isn't. Or maybe it could use a bedding job or some torque tweaking of the action screws. No, it could not use a bedding job. It's already factory bedded. And the action screws were just fine. However, some people have mentioned that actually loosening the action screws will help with accuracy on a featherweight, and I don't understand how that could possibly be true. Let that soda straw barrel cool completely between shots if you want to take groups. Well, I was only shooting three round groups, and I definitely let the rifle cool and rest in between my groupings. Now I'm only shooting 3 rounds. You're shooting 5, so you're letting your barrel get even hotter, and yet you're getting less than an inch. Really? It's built as a light hunting rifle with first shot accuracy. I understand that and I appreciate it. It's not a bench gun. You're right. Looking at your shooting technique shows me another potential problem. So that's Tim. Now I encourage an open discourse. However, I encourage an open, polite discourse, and you're not being very polite. However, I do know how to shoot, and I do a lot of shooting videos. So don't make a first impression based off on a video you've seen of mine. Just like I won't make a first impression on all Winchester featherweight rifles as I have with this. Now I am shooting a different rifle than you. I'm shooting a rifle that was assembled offshore using, they say, American components. Right? So Winchester is basically is no longer American sweetheart anymore. Right? These are assembled in Europe for the American market. Now I've owned other Winchesters. I've owned push feeds and control feed featherweight Winchester Model 70s. Pre-64, post-64. And I love them all. My favorite was a post-64 M70 push feed in 375 H&H Magnum. It was the tropical variant. And it was beautiful. It was not fun to shoot, but man, that rifle could shoot. It was incredible. This little 243, snappy little 243 with factory ammunition. Yeah, mind you, it was budget quality ammunition. Was not giving me good results. Okay? So I am not saying all Winchesters fall within this category. I'm saying that this rifle did. Right? Don't be so aggressive in the future. I mean, you started off with bullshit, right? Anyway. So here's a comment from the same video. Well done, sir. I learned this lesson with big bore lever actions. I couldn't get them to shoot well off the bench otherwise. Keep it up. So, I mean, there's somebody who agreed with some of the content of what I was saying, which is fine. Again, whether it's good or bad, I appreciate all comments. So Rudolph says, I purchased a shooter grade M48. This is a Yugoslavian Mauser, military Mauser. Got the kids running around upstairs. I purchased a shooter grade M48 in June. I assembled it and removed the final vestiges of cosmoline. The metal work is done. I polished away the stains and smoothed it out. Now I'm applying the linseed oil to the stock. Speaking of which, my dad was a native of old Yugoslavia. He told me as a young man that he worked as an elephant wrangler, skidding teak logs out of the bush. If Comrade Tito insisted the stocks on his M48s were teak, then by God, they was teak. I believe Tito always got 98% of the vote. The other 2% were shot. No doubt with his teak stocked rifles. What a sense of humor. I love that black off the wall kind of British style humor. It's funny. Anyway, if he was an elephant wrangler, then he was probably doing that in India. You know, and where you're going to find teak is going to be in India, you know, or Vietnam and places like that. Now, I suppose maybe they did. A minor amount of them were stocked in teak. People swear that they're teak. I think that's not true. I think you'll find that they're not teak, but I think they're all as previously stated in that video. But show me a picture. Show me a picture of the rifle if it's made if the stock is made of teak. I'd like to know. Okay, Mike Berg says, I understand what you're saying. I too have that unexplainable bias towards Indian and Enfields. This has got to do with, you know, for a long time, Indian and Enfields were considered to be the poorest quality of them all. It's never really been my observation, folks. You know, and I'll finish reading what he says here. I understand what you're saying. I too have had that unexplainable bias towards Indian Enfields. I suppose it's part of Western cultural bias. Your video has provided a different way of looking at things. Thanks. This is the Ishapur Jungle Fighter video I made on this rifle. Right, the Moranti stock. Yeah, they are different. They are unique. That's for sure. Does it make them a lesser Enfield? I argue no. It just makes them different. Made for a different purpose, a different environment, a different part of the world. Whereas, for example, we got Irene here, which is stocked in beautiful Beech, and it's hefty. right? It's taken a linseed oil finish beautifully. It's totally behaving differently to the linseed oil treatment than the Meranti wood on the. I mean, just look at that glimmer. I mean, it didn't take long for me to get this finish in the wood. It didn't take long at all. But the Indian Enfield is taking a little bit longer for it to get there. It's soaking a lot of oil up, so it obviously needed it. Anyway, John Voss says, howdy from Texas. Howdy. I recently just bought a number 4 Mark II that I unwrapped from the wrapper, so it's a brand new Irish contract rifle. Incredible, beautiful. In the process of decosming it, I used boiling water on the metal and a hot sunny day and a rag for the stock. The stock is very dry and slightly darkened from the wrapping. What can I do to rehydrate it without changing the color? I watched your video on stock maintenance. Using a few coats of raw linseed oil and then wiping it off would rehydrate the wood without changing the color. Thanks for your help. Okay, so if you just got that number 4 Mark II out of wrap, that means it's a Beech stock. It's an Irish contract rifle, I think you said. No, it's just the number 4 Mark II. But if it's in wrap, it's probably most likely going to be an Irish. So when they're in that grease, the cosmoline, and they're wrapped, so they're not exposed to the sun, the color of the beech should be very, very pale, like a blonde beech. I don't have one here. Well, I do have one, but I don't have one here to show you. What you will find is that the longer it's exposed to oxygen or direct sunlight or linseed oil, is that it will actually darken with time. Okay, so there's an oxidation process of the oil that has impregnated itself into the wood, right? So it will turn kind of an orangey or to a dark reddish brown over time. Like Irene here, this is beech, but this is also beech wood that is being exposed to linseed oil for a very, very long period of time. Right? This is what your number 4 Mark II will eventually look like if you continue up with its wood treatment. See, the entire purpose, the entire goal of oiling your stocks is so that you don't get variations of swelling because of moisture, right? The wood is impregnated with oil, not just coated with a varnish, right? So you get a scratch in the varnish, all water that goes into that wood is going to super swell, saturate that area. We want to try to avoid that for consistency, okay? You'll find that your rifle shoots more consistently, irregardless of the environmental conditions that you find yourself in. The swings or the movement won't be so bad, or so the peaks and dips in your accuracy will be stabilized or flatlined. So anyway, it will change the color, it will darken it over time. I want to make sure you understand that. However, using heat to actually get the oil out of your wood, or to get the cosmoline out of your metal or your wood, I do the same thing with the barbecue. Just got to be super careful. Don't do something stupid. Flame. We don't want big flame. Like, don't leave it on the barbecue and go answer the phone. By the way, I'm growing a beard. It's coming back. I'm going to do the Santa Claus thing, I think. Millstock, where we are. That was the Millsurp stock maintenance video. Morgan says, you're the only firearm channel I have. Love these old warrior weapons of freedom. Keep it up. The only firearm channel I have. You know what that means to me? Is that maybe I'm getting the right balance of firearm versus non-firearm videos, so that some people are drawn in for some of the videos, and maybe by osmosis they occasionally watch a firearm related video. That to me is very good news. So thank you very much. That's a huge compliment. Lord Evan asks, this is India's Jungle Fighter video. Ishapur, Jungle Fighter. Could you stock a rifle in teakwood? So I'm going to assume Where does this teak business coming from? So my response was no, because nobody made SMLE stocks out of teak. So, oh, there was a conversation after this. Terry says, you most certainly can stock a rifle in teak. I have Accuracy International Arm 7.62 Enfield made in Australia. The teak is nice and solid, but certainly adds a bit of weight to the rifle. Okay, so this is the AIA rifles. The Australian International Arms rifles are stocked in teak because they're assembled in Vietnam. What does Vietnam have? They have teak. I'm talking about an Indian Enfield. I'm talking about, you know, British, Australian, which have, I just had a brain fart. I forget where the brain. Oh, it'll come back to me. I'm usually pretty good when it comes to my wood species, but generally you'll never ever see a number 1 Mark III in teak stock. Mega Bait says, I think it's great that a guy can. This has got to do with forcing innovation. This is about manufacturing your own, I guess, brass-plated bullets in this situation, not copper-plated or copper-jacketed. This is a brass-jacketed bullet. I think it's great that a guy can do this with spent cases and offer people an option, because you're right, hand loading with everything we need is out of control. Even casting your bullets is not really saving you anything if you figure the cost of your lead, alloys, mold, electric or gas, powder painting or lubing, gas checking, the cost of your lead pot, etc., not to mention your time. And then after casting, we find out the mold doesn't shoot well in our rifles. I just retired and I'm finding out that I'm shooting way less than shooting because of the time it takes to cast bullets. And I've been buying cheap plated bullets, also from small guys like your guy too. Those Spear 180 grain bullets are 22 cents a piece at Graff & Sons, just for your information. Graff & Sons is a beautiful giant company in the United States, which I wish I could buy from, because I'm in Canada and I can't take advantage of those awesome deals. I just hate our rules. Anyway, that's what I actually am doing today. Is I'm casting up those. I'm not casting with them. You know that I'm reloading. I'm trying to get it done, right? The honey-do list that I've got for my wife is pretty long, and I'm trying to fit stuff in. We're getting ready for winter. I got the wood stove going over here. I got the stocks drying. I got this going. I got the wood. You know, I'm trying to get a bunch of rifles fixed up so that I'm happy before I'm going to start shooting them. The thing is, what you want your rifle to do is to stabilize. So far as, you know, we're talking about using oil. We're manipulating the oil content of the wood. So you don't want to put too much on too fast. This is like a slow process. This is an organic product. You don't overload it, right? You just tiny amounts at a time. Or you let the wood adjust slowly over time. If you swell it up too fast, too soon, and then start shooting it, you may start to see cracking, because you don't let that rifle. So, I mean, for example, just try to exemplify what the message I'm trying to convey to you, which is I just oiled this thing and it's already soaked a bunch of it in. So when I had the buttstock off of this rifle, okay, I was oiling it and I knew that it was going to start to swell, right? So one of the first things I did was reinsert the buttstock onto this rifle, because I don't want it to swell more than what the receiver ring socket is here, okay? So it's going to be a pain in the butt to get that thing back on, because the wood is going to change. It's going to have more body to it. It's going to be heavier. So don't do it too fast. Do it slowly over time. Okay. Donald Robertson says, Rifle Cherry, you've commented before about getting a small manufacturer to produce parts for Enfields and other military surplus firearms. I was perusing a newish gun magazine the other day. It must have over 50 ads for AR barrels, stateside of course. Would it not seem reasonable for a company with the ability to manufacture barrels like that to crank out Enfield and other types of military barrels for rebuilds? I think a sure market in the small pool would be better than possible sales in a big pool with hundreds of competitors. I lately bought a number 4 Sporter, a Savage, and Churchill or Parker Hale aftermarket wood. The ad said very good condition, and I've dealt with them many times. Usually I ask, but this time I forgot. It came with a 2-groove barrel. Yuck. The bore is clean and shiny, but looks like some kid drew the grooves in with a pencil. I've looked down the bore shot in your video and cried like a baby. So I know your pain. When a rifle comes to you and the bore is not described, or if it's in poor condition, like, definitely ask if it's a 2-groove or a 5-groove. I agree with you. You know, I mean, if you're not sure about the 2-groove, I will say that I've had reasonable accuracy with the 2-groove out to about 300 meters. Outside of that, no. But probably you won't even notice the difference at 100 meters between a 2-groove and a 5-groove. I don't think they're a very accurate barrel, but I think they're sufficiently accurate for mass production needs. I do prefer the 5-groove. I think they're better barrels. Anyway, Walther did make a run of number 4 barrels, geez, probably 10 years ago. It sure would be nice if maybe International Barrels would be able to do something to that effect and get us some new 303 barrels. We need new barrels. Enfield enthusiasts across the globe. Right? There's got to be millions of us out there. Right? We have these beautiful rifles. Some of them are getting a little long in the tooth. They could use a new barrel. Somebody out there has got to make us some new barrels. I totally agree with you, Donald. And I know your pain. Okay, so if you could only own one rifle. By the way, that video, if you could only own one rifle, with Tudenam, Yodad, and me out hunting in the middle of nowhere, that was actually after a huge giant rainstorm. We had trees coming down all over the place. It turns out in October of 2017, when we were filming this, I got up 3 times that night, out there in the rain gear and my underwear, bailing out the boat because it was going to sink. It was raining that hard. The wind was coming up, the ground was being super saturated, there was plumes of sediment coming into the lake from the river. And it turns out that was a major, that was a Q100 event. That was a 100-year event, that rainstorm. And there were roads blowing out all over the place. Anyways, we made that video after that rain event. We didn't know everything was falling apart. Bridges being blown out, pieces of roads, trees being swept away, floods everywhere. Thankfully, we got out of there in one piece. But for him, the AR-15 with 3 uppers and a 22 long rifle conversion bolt, one upper in 5.56 and the other in 300 AAC blackout, and maybe one in 458 SOCOM, with the AR only as the lower is considered to be the firearm. So it's much more modular and versatile than other choices. Plus, all 3 calibers use the same mags, and I can use 4 different calibers if I run across the ammo. You can also leave the optic mounted on the upper, so no need to re-zero after you caliber swap. I get it. I totally get it. So the question was if you could only own one rifle. And so what it really demonstrated for me from reading your responses is that there's an urban and a rural divide as to what that rifle needs to look like. If you're an urban, if you're an urban or a city metropolitan situation, you're not worried about, you may not necessarily be immediately worried about starving to death, but when that situation starts to apprise itself, the only thing you're going to be worried about necessarily, probably your primary concern, is going to be other people trying to take what you have because they're literally starving to death. So in that case, you want a rifle which you may need for war fighting. Okay, but I think that the message we were essentially trying to convey is that if you could only grab one rifle, what would it be and why? And think along the terms of what it's most likely going to be required for, right? So the rural-urban divide was an interesting thing for us. For us, it was for sustenance hunting. For people in metropolitan centers, it's about personal defense. Very interesting. It's a great conversation to have, isn't it? How are we doing for time here? I'll make this quick. Sabertech rifle chair. I've had decent results using bullets from 7.62 by 54R machine gun rounds. The ones this is what is this video here? I'm not sure. The ones I use are sometimes called light ball. They use a mild steel core, and because steel is less dense than lead, they come in at around 148 grains, but are still long enough to stabilize properly in my number 4 rifles. Very true. I use both Reloader 15 and Hodgdon. Okay, I'm not going to talk about reloading because I don't YouTube police. But the powders are slower burning propellants, which takes good advantage of the longer Enfield barrels. I won't reveal the exact charges because we both know that at least one idiot will do something stupid, blow his rifle and likely his hand off or something else off, and then try to sue you. Maple Leaf up. That was the forcing innovation video. Is people just being innovative, parasitizing other ammunition in order to keep your other rifles running. Right? That's what you have to do. 2019 Cabin Fever Challenge. Kanakata Firearms rifle chair. You're going to make me spend $70-ish on mags for my AR-102, and they ain't going to be 10-round pistol mags. Most likely, as they're rare as hen's teeth, and I only have one. You better enjoy my run this coming year. Laugh out loud. So you're blaming me because you're going to have to spend money on extra magazines? Well, thank you. I take that as a compliment. Good luck. By the way, 2019 Cabin Fever Challenge. I need help with this. I need help with it. Yeandel is there's a subscriber. His name is Yeandel. Yeandel. Am I saying that wrong? He's offered to help me with it. I'm probably going to take him up on it. I definitely need help with it. I think what I need is basically a coordinator for each category. You know, vintage, modern, or unlimited, and manual rifles. I'm going to need a champion for each of those categories because I'm finding that it's just too much for me to do on my own. I know there's some of you out there that would be willing to maybe volunteer some of your time to make that happen. I'd appreciate it. Let me know. Baby chainsaw, still MS-170. I've cut over 40 cords with my MS-261, and that computer-controlled carburetor is very interesting. Oh, okay, so I'm kind of old school. I like the old chainsaws, and I wasn't sure about the new stuff because I guess I'm resistant to that kind of change in a chainsaw. But you know, if there's some good things to say about it, I'll definitely listen. Anyway, that computer-controlled carburetor is quite interesting. In short, it's very nice and a huge benefit when you're in mountainous terrain and a cut and drastic changes in elevation. If you don't, then you'd be fine with a regular carburetor and just adjust it for the season. The only problem that I had was self-induced. While cutting willow clusters and I have no clear view of the ground, I cut at a very low RPM because if I do hit a rock, the chances of completely destroying a $35 chain is minimized at low RPM. But the computer adjusts if you cut with low RPMs long enough, and the saw will run terrible and be difficult to even start. Once you do start it, just cutting really hard will help the computer readjust to proper carb settings. Cutting at low RPM is really bad for the clutch anyway. It's exactly the same effect as riding the clutch on a motor vehicle. Yeah, okay, so that confirms what I've heard from other people is that running at low RPMs just carbs it up. You know, you're not running very cleanly or efficiently. I get it. The sauce is not running as hot as it normally would. It needs to be hot. This has got to do with gun owners will stand together or they will fall together. You're absolutely right, Rifle Chair. Bill Blair is the minister of nothing. They will not get the handguns from lawful gun owners. Once the semi-automatic rifles are gone, they will go after the bolt hunting rifles, and if any hunter or skeet shooter never supported, I gotta read this again, they will not get the handguns from lawful gun owners. Once the semi-automatic rifles are gone, then they will go after the bolt action hunting rifles, and if any hunters or skeet shooters never supported the collectors of semi-automatic firearms, there will be no reason for former collectors who lost their firearms to support those same hunters and those same skeet shooters. We cannot allow this to happen. So the thing is I actually made a video on this, is that law-abiding firearms owners are the biggest persecuted minority in Canada. It's okay to pick on them. I don't know why. It seems culturally acceptable to pick on this minority in Canada. And I think it simply comes down to this. For example, today I just read that Cambridge University students have voted against Remembrance Day over fears that it glorifies war. So this indoctrination of our youth from these university professors, these cultural Marxists that are basically indoctrinating youth to have these crazy ideas about reality, is absolutely terrifying. And there have been a few other comments on my videos that I swear they have to be like the students of these professors. Here's one. A guy called Namaste Man. Canada is a society and not a country, and certainly not a nation. Canada is not a white country. Unfortunately, it is a society of mostly white people who, fortunately for future generations, is dying out. Once the white population is equalized or outnumbered, there will be social, economical, and cultural equality. May God bring this speedily. This is somebody who's probably a subscriber, because he's commented in more than one of my videos. And it's one of the reasons why I don't delete these videos, because I want you guys to read these comments of what people are thinking. This is absolutely horrific. Cultural Marxism. These are the people that went into the back alleys and shot men, women, and children in the back of the head in mass funeral ditches. Here's another one. All white people living in North America are descendants of genocidal maniacs. Their forefathers killed in cold blood Native American men, women, and children, and babies, and stole their land. This is the headspace of these people, folks, and their voters. So, they obviously haven't studied history of humanity from more than one perspective. They're very limited, and they're completely ignorant people. But they vote. And they will vote for the Liberals, and they will vote for the NDP. If you could only own one rifle, comment here, Noah was a prepper, and it worked out for him. I guess so. He was pretty much a prepper, wasn't he? He had a boatload full of food. The question is, this is from D. Hubbard, did he take more than one gun? I'll leave it there, folks. That's mail call number 2 for this quarter. I don't know. Let me know if it was any good. Cheers, folks. Talk to you later. Maple leaf up.